7 years. It took solo dev Billy Basso of Shared Memory 7 years to complete his passion project. Everything you see, hear, and experience in this small indie title was created and implemented by one person. Yes, everything.
Who did the voice of the kangaroo?
Yeah, that one was me.
With the assistance of business partner Dan Edelman and YouTuber-owned publisher BigMode, AnimalWell was presented and eventually released to a highly curious audience. At first glance, AnimalWell is a Metroidvania-style game, but there's more to it than that. There's no combat, but there are puzzles and hazards. There's no power-ups, but you have a variety of tools to help you get around. AnimalWell breaks the mold, and in doing so brings something familiar to the table, but in a modern and clever way. Before we move on, if you haven't played this game already, and you have any sort of interest in playing, I recommend holding off on this review. Although I attempt to be vague in discussing the specifics, there will be visuals that are better off being experienced for yourself. Take a moment and absorb this atmosphere. I mean, it's just breathtaking. We're starting here because this is what first pulled me in. I was not waiting for this game to arrive. I had never heard of Billy Basso, his studio, Shared Memory, or publisher BigMode. I haven't even played Metroidvania games before. This game doesn't even have any romanceable party members. I wanted this game regardless, because it looked cool. It looked like something you'd find on an arcade cabinet. The map is just so gorgeous and alive, but still retains the charm and simplicity that can be found in the pixelated games of the past. Scanlines are on by default, and in my honest opinion, from an aesthetic standpoint, it should stay that way. Not to say the pixel art looks bad without them, just a little nude. The most masterful pixel artists of early gaming generations created their art with the scan lines and color bleed from the CRT monitors and televisions of that time period in mind. Shared Memory recreates this complementary relationship by taking pixel art and modernizing it, utilizing today's hardware and tech. The pixel art, the scanline filter, the lighting, and even the animations are all complementary pieces that accumulate to the intended look and feel of the art and aesthetic as a whole. Turning off the scanlines in AnimalWell is like taking any other modern game, turning off all the filters and effects, and then running it through an old CRT monitor. That actually sounds really cool. And also maybe a bit of an exaggeration. But the point is, AnimalWell has a very intentional retro-style look and feel. It's pixel art, but made for now, with techniques of now, and held up by a custom-made engine made by Billy Basso himself. It's not just the overarching art direction that has me head over heels, it's the world design too. The map is composed of 4-ish distinct biomes, and within these biomes, microbiomes. This game likes to work in layers, remember this. Anyways, Billy utilizes dark, moody backdrops, striking colors, subtle animations, and clever illumination/lighting techniques to bring these beautifully built maps to life. But it's not just the visuals, it's the sound design too. The audio is subtle, haunting, effective, and doesn't overstay its welcome. That last part is kind of a weird thing to say, but in a game like this, when you're trying to focus on puzzles and exploration, and sometimes running for your life, a jaunty OST can be a little distracting. Not to say there aren't any provoking melodies that highlight some of the more interesting occurrences and encounters. Which brings me to the inhabitants of these ecosystems. Possibly my favorite part of the whole game. They are often surreal, dreamlike creatures or entities. The animal designs do such a good job of evoking a sense of wonder and sometimes fear, as nature tends to do. Some of the imagery and animal encounters were very reminiscent of Pikmin, in a way. Not so much mechanically, but both games tend to highlight the often unpredictable and tense nature of wild animal encounters. But wait, what are the animals doing here in this well? Is there cross-species friction? Is this actually a well? And who is this blob? Was he just born? Are we trying to leave? Do the animals like me? Reminiscent of older titles, the story is there. Kinda-ish. But it's less of one consistent thread to follow, and more like scattered bits of lore throughout the biomes, giving you the scent of what the world is or was like. It's more like an archaeologist unraveling the mysteries of past societies and theorizing what may have been, and less like a movie that spells things out for you. You're just a blob from a bud in shoes in the AnimalWell. Have fun, little buddy. I named mine Blob Odenkirk. This is reminiscent of older titles. You're just a guy who appears and you gotta go do a thing, so go do it. It's not the promise of the next chapter in the story that keeps you moving. It's how compelling and fun the map is to navigate. It's your drive to complete the goal and see all the puzzles. It's your need to know if there's anything else lurking slightly off map. To be clear, the lack of story isn't a fault. It's a feature. AnimalWell is about exploring. It's about puzzles, about mystery, and it does all of those things well enough to keep you enthralled. I mean, I could be wrong. There could be an actual story in there somewhere. And by that I mean, I finished the game, but I haven't actually finished the game. I guess a more accurate statement would be, to my knowledge, there's no real story in Layer 1, just a goal. AnimalWell is built in layers. Remember the layers? 4 of them actually. According to that wily developer, getting through Layer 1 rolls the credits. This is where most of the core gameplay mechanics live. You'll need to make clever use of your handy-dandy inventory and platforming skills to get through the puzzles and past various hazards. Completing Layer 2 is kind of like completing the game to 100% in a more traditional sense. It's like the post-game of titles that had progress bars. You beat the boss and roll the credits, but don't you want to see what happens when the progress bar fills completely? This is the time to comb back through the map, poke around in places that you couldn't reach before, tie up loose ends, and challenge the next level of platforming and puzzling AnimalWell has to offer. It's more or less Layer 1, but harder. Layers 3 and 4 are a different beast, slowly but surely being peeled apart by the AnimalWell community. As of now, they are still shrouded in mystery. There's even a website to track whether or not all secrets have been found. The intent behind this layer system is to keep the game interesting for years to come. No need for new content updates. New content is already embedded in this game waiting to be uncovered. But before you get ready to go secret hunting, you need to get accustomed to the core gameplay. There's no tutorial. Well, there's a wake-up command and a jump prompt. After that, the game doesn't really guide you to do anything. Overtly, that is. AnimalWell is very intuitive in the way that it teaches you how to utilize Blob, the environment, and your tools, which are just so charming, by the way. I love that the theme here is things a kid would lose down a well. Before you know it, you're already pretty good at spotting inconsistencies in the map and terrain and assessing whether or not you can make that jump. The game never tells you how to do these things, but it does lead you, but not with yellow paint or writing on the walls. It relies on intuition, curiosity, and experimentation. Most of all, it gives you the time and space to test your limits. All of your tools are found in the well, each one carefully placed within a room, or adjacent to a room, that has been expertly designed to allow you to test the functions and, again, limits of your new toy. These forlorn objects are used to navigate the world around you and complete puzzles to continue your journey. Puzzles are masterfully woven into the environment. They are engaging, range in complexity, and oftentimes leave the player feeling very pleased with themselves for figuring them out. I can't count how many times I caught myself gasping in disbelief or uttering words of astonishment and admiration after completing a puzzle and watching the last pieces slide into place. Some of these puzzles require only your knowledge of the basic inputs and a little timing. Others require complex use of multiple tools and a whole lot of sleuthing. These more complex tasks are not required to roll the credits, but they are there for you if you so choose. I highly encourage you to so choose. It's a fantastic way to include difficulty levels without actually adding difficulty levels. However, while you're puzzling and platforming your way through the densely populated map, you may notice something might be missing. No, it's not missing. It's just not there. It's just not really necessary. Combat. There isn't really any to be seen in the AnimalWell. There are big, beautiful, dangerous animals that may or may not pose a threat to your well-being, but you are just a blob. You cannot fight, and you cannot win. Instead, you must find a way around these animals, which aren't really enemies, they're just wild. They can be helpful or a hindrance. Some can be manipulated. Others just want you to leave them alone. There's also these guys, devious little sprites. Nothing I said applies to them, they're just mean. Once you get past the core gameplay, the complexities of layers 2, 3, and 4 may have you stumped at some point. You're stuck, but you don't want to give up. You don't want to look anything up, but maybe a hint would be nice. Although Layer 1 is crafted so that it can be completed solo with only minor frustrations, and even Layer 2 is crafted so it can be done solo if you're clever, once you decide to delve deeper, you may realize you need a little help. Shared memory discourages the use of guides, however, it is highly encouraged to play with others. This can be friends, family, schoolmates, co-workers, even the AnimalWell community Discord. Once you've hit that proverbial wall, you can compare progress with people you know or ask for help from the community. In fact, ARG-style puzzles were even used to get the awaiting players' brains moving before the big release, maybe even after release too. Diving into the Discord and exploring the various brainstorming channels brings back memories of secret hunting and rumor swapping in the local library or in the schoolyard. Sometimes chasing false leads, other times working together to achieve a common goal. It's all very wholesome when you think about it. It's understandable that some people may find having to involve themselves with others to complete their games tedious, but I've always found it charming.
You can't catch all 150 Pokemon by yourself.
So close.
AnimalWell's Steam tags are currently Exploration, Metroidvania, Puzzle, and Platformer. But it's more than just its Steam tags. It's an amalgamation of all the best parts of Metroidvanias, puzzle platformers, survival horror, and the spirit of gaming in general. It's a passion project, accumulation of great art, mechanics, and occurrences carefully stitched together to create an enjoyable and engaging experience. I would go so far as to even call it a period piece, carefully bottling the spirit of gaming from another era and allowing us to experience it in a way that isn't just an emulation of that time, but a recreation, utilizing new tech to breathe life into an old experience. AnimalWell is a wonderful indie title that is doing something different but familiar all the same.